Why, hi there. I'm Ron Jeckett, and he's Drew Douglas. And this never-ending excitement for the winter meetings has finally come to an end, and to the point we're actually going to do a show tonight because, the Washington Nationals were a lot like wallflowers this week. They were happy to be at the soda and bake sales for the high school dance, but they didn't really want to dance with anybody until 1 o'clock this morning, because that's, of course, the perfect time to sign somebody, and that perfect somebody was Brandon Kintzler. A move that we kind of didn't think that would happen, did we?
No, I kind of expected, like you said, for him to maybe go out in Arizona or whether it's Arizona or another team, just be closing somewhere, because with the Nationals, obviously they already have Sean Doolittle penciled in as closer. So I expect Kintzler to kind of fill the seventh inning like he did in the second half of last year. So, yeah, I was definitely surprised to see him come back to the Nats.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And so it did kind of address one of the big holes potentially depth-wise on the team. They leave Orlando without any pitching, starting pitching figured out. Apparently there has been some discussions regarding Bryce Harper, but we thought that was going to happen anyway. I'm surprised this is being treated as actual news.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously going into his contract year, and the Nationals wouldn't really be doing their job if they didn't at least talk to him. So I think, yeah, it's not really any big surprise that they were talking to Bryce Harper.
Are you surprised that they were so inactive this week?
No, not really, because I don't think they really have too much that they need to address this offseason. And I think Rizzo, while they didn't get too much accomplished, he was kind of laying the groundwork for some future transactions.
So after all this, do you think that they do they make a trade for a pitcher? Do they sign a free agent pitcher? Where do you think we're headed now?
I think they probably go the trade route, just because the free agent market is just going to be ridiculously expensive, with guys like Jake Arrieta supposedly seeking $200 million. I mean, the Nationals have obviously been linked to him, but I don't think they'll sign him for $200 million. And then, I mean, I think maybe if they go with a free agent, it'll be a guy like CC Sabathia, or maybe if they really reach a guy like Alex Cobb.
I can see Cobb. You know who's really surprised me as far as how active they've been has been the Minnesota Twins. Or if you want to keep in Washington terms, the original Senators. With the Pineda, and he's not even going to pitch this year. They've really been. I'm surprised how active they've been. Observant tweeter tweeted me when I announced that we were doing the show tonight. Wanted our thoughts on possibly Zach Greinke. So since you didn't know that, I'll let you. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll get Greinke. I did see John Heyman report that they were possibly interested, and it does make sense because Mike Rizzo has traded for Greinke in the past, and he had no trade clause at the time, so he ended up rejecting the trade because that was before the Nationals were really competitive. But, I mean, I just think he's too expensive. Unless Arizona eats a lot of that contract, I don't really see him coming to the Nationals.
And the other rumor tonight from Chris Cotillo from SB Nation, JD Martinez, which kind of floors me because that contract doesn't be cheap either.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposedly seeking just as much as Jake Arrieta in that $200 million, and I don't really think the Nationals are willing to spend that much money on a free agent bat. I mean, Cotillo mentioned that it could be good insurance for if they possibly lose Bryce Harper after this season, have another big bat in the lineup, but I don't know. I don't see the Nationals spending $200 million on a free agent this offseason.
I don't either. Right now, with the Kintzler contract, their opening day payroll is estimated to be around $174 million, which I think is about $3 million less than last year. And that's without any of the arbitration numbers coming in or anyone else that they may sign. I don't see it getting much higher than 180 just because that's a lot of money, and they're not going to need it to win the division. I mean, assuming, well, considering that 13 people got hurt last year and they won the division by 20 games, you can't tell me that this roster doesn't win the National League East.
Yeah, I don't really think the division is that much of a concern right now, even with teams like the Phillies going out and fortifying their bullpen a little bit with guys like Pat Neshek and Tommy Hunter this week. And obviously the Braves are kind of an up-and-coming team, and the Mets, if they're healthy, they could be decent. But I mean, I think the Nationals should win the division pretty easily again, even as the roster currently stands. But
Well,
yeah.
Well, Miami had, is in the midst of a fire sale.
Mhm.
Philadelphia has all this money to spend, but they don't seem to be on the verge of even 500. They're a scrappy little team, but I don't think that this is their year for contention. The Braves, I didn't think, did as much as I thought they would do, and the Mets are trying to trade Matt Harvey, and it's still the Mets. So, I don't – if you're doing this, it's all about 2 weeks in October. And I don't think – I think the front office reasoning is we're not going to go out and spend a ton of money for 2 weeks in October right now. We'll see where we are in July and kind of go from there. I think they eventually get a fifth starter, and they really do need a backup catcher. But I don't see them going out and getting any of these glamour names, as you said. I don't think there's a $20 million name per season coming to Washington between now and March.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you said about kind of address your needs in July, I would even be fine with the Nationals going into the season with Pedro Severino as the backup catcher, as long as they go out and maybe one of these teams that thinks they'll contend and ends up having a little bit of a down first half and they're selling at the deadline, maybe that's when you get the backup catchers as opposed to now.
Right. I think you can do some of that with non-roster invitees like Derek Norris is for the Tigers this year. You can always just take a chance on someone and hope that whatever plagued Severino last year in September will kind of cure itself over a course of a full spring training. Because really, someone needs to catch about 70 games. Let's hope that it's not Jose Lobaton. Anyone can rip off a helmet and go, wow. But it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be Lobaton. I think they took care of one of their biggest needs by re-signing Kinsler, because you have all three of them can do whatever roles. And the piece I wrote today, I think Dave Martinez will go in with the same thoughts as Dusty Baker and go, the law firm Kinsler, Madsen, and Doolittle. But you now have some insurance for that. I guess it also came out that Cody Glover is healthy and throwing again. And if you're looking for another righty in the pen, there's always Don Kelly, if he's healthy. So, I depth-wise, they're fine. The other interesting thing to me is, you wrote the piece on this. There were 12 free agents the Nats had coming into this offseason. 2 have signed, both with the Nats. No one has actually left the team yet. Now, we don't expect that to be the case when all is said and done. But it says a lot right there that, people have had 6-7 weeks to look at some of these players, and no one's left.
Yeah, and I think some of that is also just because the Nationals have been such a great organization over the past several years, especially. I think, they've now won the National League East back-to-back years. They're really expected to win it again in 2018 with the weaker division. And I think now Dusty Baker's gone, but Dave Martinez, people are saying that he should be a good players manager, so players are going to want to come in and play for him. I think the Nationals are really just they've established themselves as one of the best organizations in the league and a winning organization as well. So really, I think the Nationals are possibly one of the most attractive destinations for potential free agents.
Absolutely, I agree. What would you predict will happen? Will we see a Harper deal before spring training, or does that get announced later on?
I think that's probably later on. I would expect if they extend anyone, maybe it's Anthony Rendon. Scott Boras, his agent, was saying that they're probably going to begin to negotiate a contract extension around arbitration time in January and February. So maybe we see a Rendon extension shortly before spring training this year.
Now he has what, 1 more year or 2 more years?
He has 2 years arbitration, so 2018 and 2019, and he's a free agent.
And of course, the other potential big free agent is Daniel Murphy. Now they've gone through and hired Kevin Long as a hitting coach. They brought in I guess pretty much all, that's the pretty big incentive there. Would you like to give a prediction on what they'll do with Daniel Murphy?
I think they'll re-sign him. I think obviously he is a little bit older. He's into his early to mid 30s now, but he's kind of a unique case where he's a late bloomer and He's a guy he's always working. He studies the game. He's like, as we see him in the dugout, he's always talking hitting, even with some guys that aren't even primary hitters. We saw him talking hitting with like Max Scherzer last year. So I think if anyone was going to be able to stay productive into their late 30s, it would be him.
Now, see, I think Murphy's the one that's not going to come back. You know, I think if they sign Harper, you're looking at a payroll that's going to be close to $200 million. So, like we said earlier, it's 174 now estimated. You figure that Rendon's going to get a healthy contract, which he deserves. I just see at some point that if you keep Murphy, what do you do? You're the one that wrote the piece on whether or not Wilmer Defoe would still be with the team. I mean, don't you think it's either Murphy or Defoe?
Yeah, I would think Defoe is the one that's definitely in line to take Murphy's job if he leaves. And yeah, I think maybe this offseason tells us what the Nationals' future plans are for Murphy. If Defoe's traded, maybe they intend on re-signing him. But if Defoe hangs around, then maybe they're kind of expecting to lose him after 2018 and Defoe to step in and be the everyday second baseman.
Yeah, I think a lot will depend on how, Defoe can be that super utility role player. Hopefully he never sees center field ever again in a game that matters. But, he can play the middle infield. He did play a little bit of third. I'm surprised they didn't try him at first and didn't do as poorly in the corner outfield spots. But it's not someone that you want out there. I guess the other thing we learned over the course of the last 4 days is that Adam Eaton, when he returns, will not only be in left field, but he will lead off. I'm kind of the school where I think Trey Turner's a better leadoff guy, but we really haven't seen enough of Eaton, I suppose, to really make that judgment. Knowing how much speed matters, wouldn't you rather have Turner leading off just because he's a potential 65, 70 steal guy if he's healthy all year?
I mean, personally, I think I would actually put Eaton lead off. I mean, I guess it depends on how his knee is and how he's recovering from that surgery, because if he's not able to steal as many bases as he was prior to the surgery, then obviously he's not going to be as productive in the leadoff hole. But when you kind of break up the lefties, if you're thinking about going Harper 3-4, and Turner I don't think he really sees enough pitches to be kind of your traditional leadoff batter. So I think personally I would go with Eaton in the leadoff spot, but we may see that change.
You just actually took the point you just stole my point. You're right. He does not see enough pitches. That was one of the key things, if you remember from the playoff series, that once Jason Worth got chucked into the 2-hole, that the lineup saw more pitches and were able to be a little more effective against the Cubs pitchers. So having said that, assuming that Worth does leave, would you put Rendon in the 2-hole? Because no one sees more pitches than Rendon.
Yeah, I think Rendon would probably be a good 2-hole hitter. I mean, yeah, like you said, he sees a lot of pitches with his nickname, 22 bags. He obviously hits a lot of doubles, be a lot of great RBI situations for the heart of the Nationals lineup. So I think he'd be a great 2-hole hitter, but then I don't know where you put Trey Turner because, I mean, with his speed, maybe put him towards the bottom lineup, but I think he's too good of a hitter to kind of be that far down.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Would you try him at 6? You don't want him. The reason why I kind of hesitate with him at 2, outside of what you mentioned with the pitches, is that, if he steals a base late in the game, that just allows them to no pitch intentionally walk the power hitters. Maybe you do put him in the 6th or a 7th hole. I mean, it certainly is good if you can get Turner on potentially towards the bottom of the lineup, have him steal second, and then get bunted to third by the pitcher in a sec.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. That could work out perfectly. You kind of have a leadoff hitter for the bottom part of the lineup. So yeah, I think maybe we see the Nationals experiment with that and see how that works out. That
would be what they would do if this was an American League team with the DH. And Dave Martinez, you can send your royalty checks too. All right, nothing going on in the chat tonight. So we'll let go for a minute or two before we say goodnight. But yeah, I mean, this is to kind of recap. I mean, this is pretty much what we expected throughout the winter meetings. Just kind of a lot of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really get too much accomplished, but I'm not sure that it's really in Mike Rizzo's nature to not do something big. So I don't know. I wouldn't completely rule out some big free agent splash or a big trade at some point in the offseason. Probably more along the lines of a trade, but yeah, I definitely could see something big happening between now and when pitchers and catchers report to spring training.
Who do you think team-wise had the best winter meetings?
I mean, the Rockies did a great job filling out the back of their bullpen. I know they got Jake McGee. They brought in Brian Shaw, who pitched for Cleveland last year, and now they're supposedly close on a deal with the guy that closed for them last year, Greg Holland. So I think they did a great job with that bullpen. St. Louis, I think, did a solid job, and I really like what they did with Stephen Piscotty to trade him out to Oakland and be closer to his family. So I think probably St. Louis and Colorado did a great job.
Cubs did a pretty good job too. I think that's probably for a song, even though he won't really pitch this year. They seem to be setting up for a run not only in 2018, but in the future as well. In the future as well. And there aren't the needs that we talk about for the Nats as far as help for Wieters and the fifth starter. Those were great if you could do it, but this team is still going to be favored to win 97, 98 games, even with what they didn't felt like they didn't needed to do. That's not even a complete sentence. You know where I was going. There wasn't anything urgent that they had to take care of. Like I said, the Twins are being a bit aggressive too, which is good to see. I was surprised that the Red Sox kind of held on and did nothing. I really expected the J.D. Martinez thing to be settled with them. And of course, our dear friends, the Baltimore Orioles, they're going to trade Manny Machado, but they don't want to allow teams a chance to talk extension before they trade him.
Yeah, I think that'll hurt Machado's trade value a little bit. But I heard they're asking for Michael Kopech and Lucas Giolito from the White Sox. I'm not sure that. Yeah, I think if they don't lower their asking price, Machado's going to at least begin the season with Baltimore.
Yeah, I can see Baltimore being stubborn enough that all they get is the draft pick for the qualifying offer he's not going to take.
Yeah, we've never seen Peter Angelos be stubborn. So.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ask the Naval Academy about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did enough. Let me see if anyone actually chatted. It was a no one wants to chat with us tonight. Oh, gosh darn. Look, I brushed my teeth this week and everything. I guess that will do it for our exhausting coverage of the winter meetings. I'll have a three slide takeaway for tomorrow morning, which means I have to write the damn thing now, about the winter meetings. But like we said, that not much this wasn't like last year when they claimed they were going to be able to get Andrew McCutchen and Chris Sale and walked away without a meeting. So that will take care of it for us. We will talk to you one more time before the holidays. Probably next Thursday, all things willing, before we get the holidays for a regular edition of the DoDCast. Hope you're enjoying the conversations in the background there for the women's national volleyball semifinals. Really important stuff going on. Where are they holding?
I think in Missouri. I'm not exactly sure.
Ask them. They're sitting right there.
You guys know where this game's being played? Kansas. That's what it is.
Ah, okay. So I assume that's on
ESPN.
ESPN. So if you want to flip over and watch that. So tomorrow, you're lucky, Drew. Danny Duffy didn't get traded today. So the piece that you wrote for today will actually be able to run tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good.
So we'll have takeaways from. We ran a piece on Ryan Foley did a very good piece on potential Hall of Fame chances for current nationals. I did something on the Kinsler trade for today. Tomorrow, we'll have some takeaways from the winter meetings, kind of like what the show was about. And Drew has something on Danny Duffy, possible trade target. All right. So we'll talk to you in this format next Thursday night at 7 o'clock, our regular time for that. And so for Drew Douglas, I'm Ron Juckett. Have yourselves a good night.